The Notre Dame football team opens the season on Sunday at Florida State. Brian Kelly held his Monday press conference to discuss the Seminoles and several other Fighting Irish topics. We're going to touch on some of the notable items from that presser, as well as discussing the depth chart that Notre Dame released right about the time that Brian Kelly stepped to the podium. Mike Singer joined with me as Tyler Horka. Before we really dive into this video, please hit the thumbs up, like and subscribe. Make sure to go to blueandgold.com for all coverage of Notre Dame football. I mean, Tyler, before we dive into Kelly, I mean, just looking at this depth chart, I mean, nothing really stands out to me as a surprise. The offense, I would say, is completely exactly what we expected. I mean, everything else kind of looked like we thought it would.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking at the offensive side, though, I do think it's interesting to see Lorenzo Styles as a second teamer. That's kind of something here at Blue and Gold that we saw coming, and we wrote about a little bit in the last couple of weeks. That's a prime opportunity for playing time for the true freshman right away. I think it's interesting to see that. The offensive line, we kind of had that nailed down. That's what we've been saying it would look like for a while now. So, like you said, not a lot of surprises on that side of the ball. Obviously, the Maris Lee foul injury kind of threw things for a loop at will linebacker, but even at blueandgold.com, we've been saying that JD Bertrand was having a really good fall camp, so I don't think it's all too surprising to see him slotted in as the starter at will linebacker. Brian Kelly raved about him today in the press conference as well, said that he's been doing a lot of really good things. I think he used the word trust. He's a guy that he can trust. Shane Simon, obviously, last year he kind of bounced back and forth with Leofau out that position, and neither guy could really take it and run with it in terms of kind of becoming that number one guy at the position. It'll be interesting to see if JD Bertrand does that. Shane Simon's definitely going to have his opportunities too, though. I see those guys rotating in and out a lot.
And let's go ahead and hear from Kelly. He spoke about JD Bertrand, the will linebacker spot, and as well as Rover.
I think Jack's done a really good job in terms of learning the position. There's a lot of learning. That position is one where I think everybody knows a little bit more of the structure of that defensive position is that we ask him to do a lot more than just contain the football. I mean, he's got to play coverage. He's got to be involved in the run fits. And when I say play coverage, he's got to play some man-to-man. So that's a position that requires, a lot. And so Jack's done a really good job of learning that position. But I think that, our depth is really good at that position. Jack's done really well. Pryor has had a really good camp, as has Paul Muala. So the question was about Jack, but I would say that all three of those guys have impressed us and expect to see all three of them playing. His production. Outstanding production, tough, smart, assignment correct, athletic. I mean, he has all the tools to play at a high level at that position. So, we lose, a very versatile player in Maris. There's no doubt about it. But JD Bertrand is an outstanding football player as well. So next man up in that situation. And, we'll get a chance to see him play against Florida State.
So good stuff there from Brian Kelly. Tyler, what's your reaction, when you see Jack Kaiser, Isaiah Pryor, and Paul Muala all listed as co-starters going into the game? I mean, do you have a feeling on who might get the most reps? I mean, maybe Jack Kaiser?
Yeah, I would say Jack Kaiser is probably the most likely option to get those reps because he does have more experience than the other two guys dating back to last year. But it's not a vast amount of more experience than he has over Isaiah Pryor and Paul Muala. I think all those guys are kind of in the same boat. It's kind of a three-way rover by committee, if you will. I really liked a lot of the things that Isaiah Pryor did in camp. I know one day when we did our post practice video, I kind of ranted and raved about Isaiah Pryor. He's a pretty athletic guy. It looks like he's in pretty good shape. Brian Kelly keeps saying, his thing has been he's in the best shape of his life. He's in the best shape of his life. I don't think he specifically said it about Isaiah Pryor, but I'll say it looks like that guy is in the best shape of his life. And he's another one of those guys that, it's been a long time coming for him to try to break onto the scene and become that breakout player. He's definitely going to have a lot of opportunities. I don't think Jack Kaiser is going to have, a stranglehold on the position where he's playing 80% of the snaps and the other guys, split the last 20. I think all these guys are going to get their opportunities.
Of course, Isaiah Pryor transferring over from Ohio State. joined the team last year, played safety for the Buckeyes, and now moving to that rover position. And lastly, here with the depth chart, I mean, on the left side there with your kickers, punter, long snapper, nothing really surprising there. Holder, Jay Bramblett. Now looking at punt and kick returner, Matt Salerno, Lawrence Keys, your punt returners. I've been slamming my fist on the table for Lorenzo Styles, but hey, looks like he might get into that receiver rotation like you talked about. And then kick returner. Now Brian Polian was pretty adamant that yes, Chris Tyree is the kick returner, but punt returner might be a little bit more by committee.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see Matt Salerno's name twice there. That just shows how much confidence they have, the Notre Dame coaching staff has in Salerno, simply catching the football. Everyone likes to talk about special teams being, a potential to turn a game on its head, a long return, or, maybe one of these guys takes one back for a touchdown. In a situation where you need someone to catch the ball, they're going to put Matt Salerno back there because that's what he's going to do. However, you see Lawrence Keys on there as well. I think that's where Notre Dame is looking to say, hey, when we need to make a play in the special teams department, we're going to put someone like Lawrence Keys out there. I thought Lorenzo Styles was a really good option for that. I even thought Kyron Williams, we might have seen his name. I wouldn't rule out any of those guys getting their opportunities, especially at punt return. But as far as kick return goes, Chris Tyree is going to get the ball. And, Brian Polian says that he's just got that quick twitch. He's able to make cuts. He's able to get the ball upfield. I think Chris Tyree is going to have a better year in the kick return department than he did last year for sure.
Moving along here, Brian Kelly appeared recently on a podcast called Race and Sports in America Conversations, and Kelly dropped an interesting quote that certainly made the rounds on Twitter and blueandgold.com message boards last week. The quote was, "My defensive coordinator is black and he is going to be the next head coach." And a lot of people thought that Kelly was basically calling Marcus Freeman the coach in waiting. Here is what Brian Kelly had to say about that quote to clarify it.
Somebody took the comments and inserted Notre Dame in it, and it had nothing to do with Notre Dame. We were talking about, giving qualified people, in particular African-American and Black leaders, the opportunity to lead. And I've done that in my football program with director of operations. I think I alluded to that. And then, we were talking about coaches, and I said, the next head coach will be Marcus Freeman, and that got taken as the next head coach at Notre Dame. But that was never part of the equation. I was talking about him being the next black head coach, in terms of that will be the next head coach that is black in the country. But, it's just one of those things. You're on a golf course and you're talking about race in America, and everybody else thought I was talking about Notre Dame football. So it is what it is.
So there you go. No coach in waiting situation, Tyler. I don't think we're very surprised there. Like, as soon as you see the tweet, you're like, yeah, there's no way that is how Notre Dame is going to be announcing a coach in waiting situation. That would have been pretty bizarre. Now, near the end of the press conference, you asked Coach Kelly about Jack Cohn, basically saying all the questions were about Jack Cohn. Now he's named starting quarterback, and we're not talking about him anymore. So you asked him about Cohn, and here's what he had to say.
I mean, he's been really good. I mean, he's been what he has been. That's the nice part about it, right? Is that he's the same guy every day. Like, you don't go to practice and go, who's that guy? Like, he is so consistent in terms of who he is and his makeup, his preparation. I think he's even improved since the spring in a number of the more detailed areas that we've asked him to. And I think that's the mark of a very good quarterback.
Now, Tyler, what'd you think about his response to your question?
I was really looking for Brian Kelly to, show some affirmation for Jack Cohn, and that's exactly what he did. He said, look, Jack Cohn is our guy. He's been great. Just because we're not talking about him doesn't mean that, there's been a dip in his production at practices. And that's exactly what the direction that Brian Kelly took that. It seems like he's very confident in what he has as a starting quarterback in Cohn. He, again, went back and mentioned what he did at Wisconsin. And I think the coaching staff at Notre Dame really thinks that a lot of that is going to transfer over, on the football field for the Fighting Irish. And there's a lot of reasons to suggest that it would. I know he didn't play at all last year, so there might be a little bit of a rust factor. But look, he's been through spring practices. He went through a full fall camp. Now they're in, a week and a half of Florida State prep. I think once it clicks and Jack Cohn, gets his feet under him, so to speak, at Notre Dame, I think he's going to be pretty good, because everything that we saw in fall camp, I was really blown away. I know that was my biggest takeaway was from fall camp was Jack Cohn looks really good, and I think Notre Dame expects him to be really good as well.
So there you go. Takeaways from Brian Kelly's press conference, depth chart, and much more. Of course, go to blueandgold.com for all the coverage, and make sure you hit the thumbs up on this video.